Hey, life's got no shortage of stories, awkward moments, unexpected twists, and those did that really just happen moments. Here on Cat Stories, we've packed a few into every video. My name's Kathleen and let's get into it. And for our next post, am I the idiot not giving someone a ride to the airport after agreeing to? So my friend asks me to give him a ride to the airport and I agreed to do so, but the background is this: he is never ready on time and always late for social meets. Anyway, he asked me for this favor and I said yes, but laid down the law with him a week beforehand to explain I would give him a ride, but I had something else to do on that day too, and that he would have to be ready for the time he asked me to pick him up outside his building. He promised he would be, but I took that promise lightly and planned an extra 15 minutes of waiting time because I knew he wouldn't be on time. Well, the time came and passed, as did the 15 minutes of extra time I gave him, and still no sign of him. I rang him twice in the time I was waiting outside and he kept saying he would be 2 minutes. So when the 15 extra minutes was up, I drove away and got on with the rest of my day. He rang me 20 minutes after I left to say he was outside and asked where I was, so I told him I had left and he'd have to make his own way to the airport. Now am I the arsehole for leaving him to sort himself out? And for our next post, am I the idiot for leaving a friend hanging on her birthday tonight? My 29M friend Erin, 21-ish, is celebrating her birthday tonight. We were really close friends for a little bit, but she made a move on me and took the rejection really poorly. She pressed pretty hard for a reason, and I told her it's 'cause she's hooked up with a bunch of our group, and I'm not trying to get mixed up in that whole mess. Prefer to keep my sex life separate from the people I see every weekend. Now we're okay, but last time we hung out 1:1 a couple weeks back she got drunk and started kissing my neck, which isn't a huge deal but was pretty lame after I told her nothing was gonna happen before, so I only hang out with her in groups now. Tonight's her birthday and I agreed to go party at a ski cabin with a hot tub with her in the crowd. Well, after skiing, friends got bad news about their kid. Our group is super varied ages and had to go back to the city, and took everyone else in the group for logistical reasons. I got to the cabin and found out it was just going to be her and I, and promptly suggested we go out to the bars then and meet some people to celebrate with. Joked about wingmaning for her. I chilled with her in the hot tub long enough to see if I could convince her to go out, but it wasn't happening, so I told her I had to bounce instead of staying the night. Seemed like it wasn't a huge deal to her. Our friends had said they'd pay for the cabin and make the night up another time, and I know they will. Nobody wanted to leave her hanging. She seemed happy with her hot tub, smut books, and bottle of wine. I didn't feel too off when I left. Well, now my phone has been completely blown up by the entire group, upset about me leaving her alone on her birthday, even by the ones who know that she keeps trying to get with me. I guess once she was alone she decided it's a huge deal, which yeah, I get. The night ended up being a huge disappointment. I wish I could help her have a better night, but honestly I'm probably going to do something dumb if I put myself in that situation. Help me out, my dudes. I can't tell if I messed up or if my friends are putting me in a super unfair spot. And for our next post, am I the idiot for agreeing to babysit my cousins? I 17F agreed to babysit my cousins for 3 days this January. My grandma is also babysitting for 3 days. My cousins prefer that I babysit because they get to stay at their own house, as opposed to going to my grandmother's, and I think they just find it more fun. I love spending time with the kids and I need the money, so I told my aunt I could share the babysitting load. Upon finding this out, my grandma got very upset and accused me of stealing her grandchildren away from her. She continued to make nasty comments at me for the rest of the afternoon until I excused myself. At the start of December I told my grandma that I was hoping to spend time with my cousins this holidays, and she said we could split half days. They would come over to mine for a couple hours while staying at her house for the day. This only happened once. I offered multiple times that I could come over to hers to help or suggested activities I could bring to do with them, but she seemed intent on keeping us apart. However, I'm wondering whether this time I am in the wrong and should offer to give up one of my babysitting days. I have the rest of my life to spend time with my cousins, and my grandma might only have a few years left. So am I the idiot for agreeing to babysit my cousins and taking my grandma's grandchildren away from her? And for our next post, am I the idiot H for not leaving tonight to my friends and instead tomorrow so I could get my nails done with my GF? Basically, I F 29 and my best friend, Callie F 27, are flying out on Jan 5, 2024 to get her stuff from her ex's Upton, Texas, and driving back to NC to drop her stuff off at her sister's house. I live in Wilmington, NC, and Callie lives in Georgia currently. My plan was to drive 6.5 HRS from NC on Jan 3 to meet Callie at her house in Georgia. However, I drive an old F-150 truck that has over 224,000 mi and continually stalls out on me. So, instead of risking my truck on a 6.5 HR drive, I split the drive up and left on Jan 2. My girlfriend, Sarah F-36, lives in Charlotte, NC, and is a halfway mark to Callie's house in GA. Last night I got to my GF's house to rest and intended to complete the drive today, Jan 3, 2024. Now here comes the problem. For context, Callie and her sister are currently in SC visiting an uncle and will not return home until 8:30 p.m., Jan 3. Callie is a travel nurse and is currently working 12 HR shifts. She is set to work on Jan 4, 7 a.m. 7 p.m. I was chilling at my girlfriend's house, packing up last-minute things before I left. At this time, my GF is at work and I text Callie and ask when will she be home so I know when to leave. Callie replies that she'll be home around 8:30 p.m. I'm only 3.5 HRS away from her and told her that I will see her later on tonight around the time. I texted my girlfriend that I was going to leave her house at 5 p.m. to meet Callie at 8:30 p.m., Jan 3. My GF texted that she'll miss me because she won't be home until 5:30 p.m. My GF was anxious about this weekend since I'd be gone, and I gave her a few ideas of what to do and jokingly added that we should get our nails done since my GF got paid. I texted Callie that I'll leave around 7 p.m. so I can have a nail date with my GF. Callie states that her bedtime is at 2200 and it'll be too late to come. So I then suggested I could leave tomorrow, Jan 4, and meet her at 7 p.m. when she is off work and doesn't have to wait up for me. She got mad at me because I'm not sticking to the plan if I decided to leave on Jan 4. I stated that there isn't any point for me to rush over to her before her bedtime, nor could I leave later to avoid messing up her sleep. So am I the idiot H for not leaving tonight and leaving tomorrow? BTW, I got my nails done and could have already left, but since I was arriving at 2230, but because it isn't before 2200, she's mad at me. She doesn't live in a gated community or has any animals. She lives alone. And for our next post, am I the idiot for telling my husband not to go on vacation without me? Long story short, but my husband and I have a 1-year-old daughter at home. I work full-time in a hospital, but my husband works from home and has a very flexible schedule. He wants to go abroad to Japan with his friend at the end of January to go skiing. While I would die to be able to go, I can't because 1, I don't have enough PTO, and 2, we have a baby at home. From my standpoint, I don't want him to go because I don't get to go have fun and I'm jealous. He is extending our nanny's hours for that week, so technically I will have the childcare coverage that I need, but I still feel like it's unfair. LTA for telling him to stay home. And for our next post, am I the idiot for telling my dad he shouldn't have had kids? Every time my dad gets mad about something someone in my family does, he goes on a rant about how he wasted 20 years, and it's basically him repeating everything he's been telling me since I was a kid, bringing up how he got arrested for domestic violence, but he'll always play the victim, and how me and my sister didn't graduate, and basically just talks a lot of shit about my mom. So I just didn't want to listen to the same rant again, so I said that now he has something else to use against me, but I don't need to hear about how he wasted 20 years. If it was really that bad, then maybe it's true. And for our next post, am I the idiot for moving out of my parents' house after I turned 18? So this is a bit of a long one. Also, I'm on mobile. So I 19F moved out of my parents' house 55M50F 2 months after I turned 18. To give some context, my parents have been pretty on and off my whole life. I didn't even move in with my dad until I was 9, and shortly after I moved in, his now wife moved in and they got married. For this post, my stepmom will be referred to as my mom. There has been so many issues in the past. Think alcoholism, neglect, and a lot of emotional abuse, controlling behavior, with a lot of the emotional abuse and control coming from my stepmom, who highly favored her own kids. It got to the point where I begged them to let me leave when I was 16 and they refused. I will admit I was no star role model, but I believe my actions were the result of such a negative upbringing. I always warned them that I would leave once I turned 18. So after I turned 18, I got the opportunity to visit another state and I went with nothing more than a couple of suitcases. I had absolutely no intention of staying. However, once I got there I realized how much I loved it there and wanted to live there. For once there was no one yelling at me about how I'm a pygmy or commenting on my appearance. It felt peaceful. I didn't know if I would have another opportunity to fly out again before I wanted to move and didn't want to miss out on a great opportunity, so I asked my parents to extend my stay. Some important info during this was that I bought my own plane ticket and had enough money in my savings account to live on for quite some time. I was financially independent from them at this time. The only thing I wasn't paying was rent utilities. They immediately lashed out and told me that I wasn't allowed to extend it and that if I really wanted to move then we could talk about it when I got home. I knew that meant I wouldn't be allowed to fly out again. So I told them that if that was how they felt then I just would not be coming home. I was staying with a trusted family friend at this time who really needed a roommate and was very on board with me staying, and I had a good job offer. So I told my parents that I was going to stay and I wasn't coming home. They were livid. They started yelling at me, name-calling, etc., and I finally told them that there wasn't anything they could do and they hung up. The only thing they said to me afterwards was not to bother coming back for my things because they were throwing everything of mine away, which they did. I've had minimal contact with them since. Am I the idiot? And that's a wrap for today's stories. If you had a favorite or something similar happened to you, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. See you soon. Cat signing off.